All right, today we're going to talk about Egyptian pyramid, the social pyramid, how their society was shaped. We're going to start with our spiral review question. So raise your hand if you know who Sargon the Great was.
The Emperor of Egypt.
He was not. He was not the Emperor of Egypt. Of Akkad. Yeah, he was the first. He was kind of the first real king in the known world because he didn't just rule his own city-state. He ruled a bunch of cities. Remember, anybody know who he conquered? Starts with an S. Say it. Sumeria. Very good. Describe what a Mesopotamian city-state used to look like. What did their cities look like? Starts with a Z. It had a ziggurat at the middle, right? What did it have around it? Yeah, walls. Had big walls around it, right? What was on the outside of the walls? How'd they feed their people?
They had food like crops.
Yes, they had big farmland. Very good. They had their own government. They had their own army. Good. Remember that all the houses faced into a courtyard, had narrow city streets. Everybody on the same page with me? Good. Name one of the achievements of the Mesopotamians. The plow. The wheel.
Copper tools.
Copper tools. Pottery wheel. What's something that starts with an I? Irrigation. Good. All those are correct. Well done. What was the first writing called? Cuneiform. What did they write on? Clay tablets. Good job. What was the first Mesopotamian civilization called? You already said it. Say it again. Starts with an S. Sumeria. What is an empire? Yes. That's the start of it. An empire is not one singular city-state ruled by one leader. It's a bunch of city-states ruled by people far away, right? So Sargon lived in Akkad, but he ruled all these other city-states, right? Just like the British, thousands of years later, had colonies all over the place, even though their government was in England. Do you agree?
Yeah.
All right, good. Next. Next. There you go. Next again. So, do you believe all people are created equal? Raise your hand if you do believe that. Raise your hand if you don't believe that. God, tell me why you don't think that. Huh? You don't know how to put it? Different social classes in the world. What about here in America? Theoretically, do we have different social classes here? No, we don't. We believe all people in America can rise as far as your talent and work ethic will take you. So if you got a little bit of talent and you have zero work ethic, you're just going to sit there like a glob of goo, being worthless, not doing anything. If you got just a teeny bit of talent and a large work ethic, you can become somebody important. Guys, the guy who invented the fart spray is rich, right? He had an idea to sell fart spray to stupid teenagers, right? Was that a good idea?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. Okay, it was dumb, but do people buy that up like crazy even today? Yeah, stupid teenagers, right? So he had an idea, which is ridiculous, but he had a lot of work ethic to put that into practice, and the guy's rich now. What about the person who invented the mechanical pencil? Rich. Is that a good idea?
Yes.
Yeah, of course it is. Did the person have to refine that and sell it and think of a way to market it? Of course. In America, we believe that no matter who you are, you can go as far as your own talent and your own work ethic will take you. Now, here's another thing. If you are an absolute lazy fool and don't do anything, you will be nothing. Right? It doesn't matter who your parents are. It doesn't matter how hard they work. If you are if you have zero work ethic and you sit there like a glob of mayonnaise, you're not going to be worth anything. So you have to always remember this. You get out of life what you put into it. Okay? If you work hard, you can become something here in America. We're all blessed to live in America. Does everybody understand? All right, next. The reason I tell you this is because what we're talking about today is the ancient Egyptian civilization. They did not feel that way. They did not believe that all people were created equal. They believed if you were born in one area, because who your parents were, you were better than other people. Okay? We don't think that, but they did. We're going to talk about that. Next. So understanding. Why are we doing this? It's a tested standard, yes. Also, I'm always going to have this on the board that's going to tell you the answer to my questions, right? Understanding the Egyptian social hierarchy will help us understand how their civilization worked. Next. So our essential question, Spicoli, turn around. So our essential question for today, how did social class affect daily life in ancient Egypt? Next. So here's kind of how their civilization was grouped. And it looks like a pyramid, which is fun. It looks like a pyramid, which is fun because we're talking about Egypt, but also it means something. Why was their social class shaped like a pyramid? Yes, but why didn't they just make it a list? Why is it a pyramid? Why?
Because the higher you are on it, the less important you are.
No, the higher you are on it, the more important you are. But there's another reason. Yes?
The higher you go, like the less amount of people.
Yes, that's it exactly. The higher you go, the less amount of people. How many pharaoh?
One.
There's one. Now he's going to have people that work for him, the vizier, the priests, the guy who collects the taxes, the captain of the armies. But there's only a few of them. Then you're going to have soldiers. We have a good-sized army, but not as big as the population. Then you're going to have scribes. These are basically the people who write stuff down. They're like the lawyers of the day. And then you're going to have just about everybody else. Where are most people? Most people are just average, everyday Egyptians who worked on farms or built monuments. They're lost to history as not being noteworthy. Okay, they were not considered as important as these other people. Yet this is where most of the people are. Okay, take those off. You can't write. Take those off. Next. Here's a little bit better description of it. How many pharaohs? There's going to be one. Who works for the pharaoh? Everybody works for the pharaoh. Does the pharaoh talk to everybody? No, they are not important to talk to. The pharaoh is just going to talk to a few people, and they're going to be in charge of everything. It smells like pickles in here. Anybody agree? Smells like pickles. Next. So how did social class affect daily life in Egypt? Egypt's social class was fairly rigid. You couldn't really go up, and there's only two ways. If you're really smart and dedicated, you can become a scribe, or if you were brave and strong, you can become a soldier. Other than that, if you were born a farmer, you were going to be a farmer. If you were born an artist, like your parents, you were going to be an artist because your dad would train you how to do stuff, right? Next. Members of different classes may have some things in common, but in general, their lives were different. All Egyptians cherished family life. Most Egyptians married within their social group, and children were highly valued. Whenever you see ancient Egyptian art, like on the tombs, it's always going to show children, not like little fat, pudgy, cute little things. It's going to show them just as miniature adults. It always does that. Next. Men and women had different roles in the family. Men were the heads of the households. They worked to support the family. Fathers often began to train their sons at an early age to take on their line of work. So if you're a merchant, you're going to train your son to be a merchant. If you were an artist, same thing. Next. Women typically managed the home and raised the children. Upper-class women had servants or slaves to help them. Lower-class women did all the work themselves. Next. Men were in charge of Egyptian society, but women enjoyed more freedom and rights than most in the ancient world. They could own land and run businesses. They could ask for divorce and represent themselves in court. Some women in the middle and upper class could be doctors, government officials, and priestesses. Both women and men enjoyed a better quality of life, obviously, the higher they were up on the social pyramid. The Egyptians believed that their class system created a well-ordered and stable society, and every group had their role to play. And that role was everybody worked for the Pharaoh. Next. Next again. Next again. So, this is where you should probably start writing. The first blank should say their social class was represented by an 8-level pyramid. That's the first blank, right? 8-level pyramid. Say yes.
Yes.
The next blank should start with Pharaoh. The Pharaoh was the supreme ruler of Egypt. He held possession of all the land, was considered a god embodied on earth. No laws had to be written down because whatever he said was what you did. Okay? Now, you had scribes who would write the laws down so they could enforce them. But if the Egypt said, hey, kill that guy, what would they do? They'd kill that guy, right? The Pharaoh didn't work for anyone. Everybody worked for him because they thought he was a god on earth. Was he? No, of course not real. But they thought it was real. Who told them that?
The Pharaoh.
The Pharaoh and the priests, right? Who's still right? You are welcome to walk around and sit right here. You can see better. Okay, but don't get in front of the camera, okay? It's still right. What we're going to do is we're going to move on, and then we'll fill in the blanks. You can fill in the blanks at home, but just listen right now, okay? Just listen right now. We're going to go a little bit faster. Next. How did social class affect the daily life in ancient Egypt for the Pharaoh? The Pharaoh was always on top. Everybody served the Pharaoh, and the Pharaoh served no one. Their word was law, and their wishes were other people's command. Okay, you don't have to worry about writing anything. We'll do that here in a minute. Okay? Next. Government officials. The vizier, the chief treasurer, the priests, and the military generals. Next. Government officials were the Pharaoh's advisors. They enforced laws, oversaw construction of pyramids and tombs, pleased the gods, found trade opportunities, and collected taxes. Next. That's okay. We're going to come back to it. We're going to come back to it, okay? How did social class affect daily life in Egypt for the government officials? These men lived lives of luxury and splendor. However, they still reported to the Pharaoh and would suffer the quickest judgments if they failed. What could some of those judgments be? Death. They had many servants and were in charge of the day-to-day running of Egypt. Why did the Pharaoh, what did he do? Yeah.
He told them what to do and how to do it, and if they didn't, then he would tell the others to punish them.
You're right in some aspects. In other aspects, the Pharaoh just sat around and had a good life. Okay? They treated the Pharaoh wouldn't dress himself. The Pharaoh wouldn't bathe himself. The Pharaoh wouldn't cook his own food. The Pharaoh just sat around being taken care of because he's the God on earth. He would say, do this, do that. But he would have advisors to say, hey, we should do this. We should do that. And then he would say, yeah, do that. But he was too good to be in charge of doing day-to-day things. Next. The priests. The priests were powerful and highly respected in society. Priests advised the Pharaoh, oversaw religious ceremonies, and took care of the temple and took care of burial practices. As we'll learn about tomorrow, the afterlife was very important to the Egyptians. They believed that you were resurrected when you died, if you were a good enough person, and you needed your body. So you had to take care of your body because you were going to reanimate, and you had to have it for life after death. They were very, very meticulous about that. That's why you see all these mummies. They try to take care of their bodies, right? Quit doing that. Next. Hear that? Some of them being embalmed. What they would do is they would cut out your organs, except for your heart. You're going to need that. And then they would kind of put salt all in, and it's called niter. It was like salt and baking soda all throughout, all over you. Then you would have to dry for about a month, and then they wrapped you up with these bandages with glue on it, and then they preserved by that way. They put all your organs in these jars, so when you reanimate, you just put them back in. Not real though. That was real. Next, but that's what they thought. How did the social class affect daily life of the priests? They were in charge of many religious ceremonies and practices. They served the Pharaoh, but were in charge of all religious matters and workers. Pretty good lives. Next. Soldiers. Next again. Soldiers took part in warfare and trade missions. Egypt's soldiers helped by expanding and gaining more territory. Now, Egypt didn't go out and conquer a lot of lands. They basically had their army to protect their own land, but they would send their army out on trade missions to help get trade for Egypt. So they were pretty important that way. Next. How did social class affect daily life in ancient Egypt for the soldiers? The soldiers were the warriors. Go back up. Their lives were in danger during war times, but were pretty easy during peace. They reported to the generals and officials. Like everyone, they served the Pharaoh. Soldiers were not in charge of anyone unless they owned a slave. Next. Scribes. Scribes were Egypt's official record keepers. Pay attention, please. Okay, you don't need your pen, just pay attention right now. You have a pen in a minute. They recorded the deeds of the Pharaoh. This educated class kept record of supplies, had power to fulfill duties of viziers, and could write laws in order to enforce them. Scribes, like all, were servants of the Pharaoh. Scribes reported to the vizier and government officials. Scribes were very important in Egyptian society. They were not wealthy, and their work was hard, but they were not poor. Next. Merchants. Next. Merchants gained money depending on the objects they would sell. They looked no different than commoners in Egypt. They were just regular Egyptians. Like all, they were servants of the Pharaoh, but they never talked to the Pharaoh. They just sold things. They sold things that were made. Weapons, tools, clothes, food, jewelry, animals, slaves. They sold things just exactly like merchants do now, right? Next. Artisans. Next. Artisans were highly skilled laborers who created some of the most beautiful art objects in the ancient world. This class was part of the Egyptian working class. Like all, they served the Pharaoh. They were not self-supporting in terms of agriculture. They had to work for their food. So they were not farmers. They were artists. And if they didn't make art that people wanted to buy, what would happen to them? They'd starve. Next. Next again. That was weird. Next again. Farmers were essential for the Egyptian economy. The farmers provided food for all classes, including the slaves that apparently worked on the Great Pyramid. Peasants made up the lowest and largest class in Egypt. Peasants were unskilled farmers and monument builders. Farmers were part of the lower class, which is the working class. Farmers were one of those classes, and when they fell on hard times, sometimes they sold themselves into slavery. During the flooding season, they often worked for the Pharaoh on building projects. Next. We don't have to write anything about what was their life like. Their life was what? Hard work. Every day. Hard work. They had to do that in order to survive. Next. Slaves. Next. There were two types of slaves in Egypt. You had Egyptian-born slaves, which were generally treated pretty good and could be freed by their owners. Egyptian slaves were generally people who fell on hard times or were born into slavery. Foreign slaves were people captured in war or sold by slave traders that would go to different lands. Who's the most famous Egyptian slave? Anybody know?
No.
Joseph, right? Joseph from Genesis. Next. Did you get it? In this lesson, you've learned about the 8 different social classes. List them in order. What did most Egyptians, regardless of social class, have in common? They all worked for the Pharaoh. So you got the Pharaoh, government officials, soldiers, scribes, merchants, artists, the poor farmers, and then you got slaves. Everybody agree?
Yeah.
All right, so say in my class, go forth and learn because knowledge is
Power!